So hello and welcome to my very first YouTube channel. Please like and do subscribe and leave any comments or suggestions of future videos. If you don't like this video, I'm very sorry, but please stick around and hopefully you may like my future ones. Let's get on with it. So by the title of the video, you can probably tell how this video is kind of going to go about. But for those that don't know, Britain did become the country with the highest death toll in Europe. We're now the second in the world behind the US, and that was as of the 5th of May. So this video is kind of just going to break down where I believe the government had some failings and just the overall what we have or what we haven't done to kind of battle this pandemic. So obviously it happened, the coronavirus, we already kind of know what happened. It started off in Wuhan in China and spread kind of across the world. From then, I think the first case were in September time, but Britain got its first cases in the end of January. And for the next few days, the response was kind of handled well. Everyone that was arriving from countries suspected coronavirus, that being I think it's Italy and Wuhan, China, the main ones, they were placed in hotels and quarantined for 14 days, as the government kind of guidelines kind of suggested that. And it was great, it seemed to work, and cases were far and few between at the very start, obviously increasing day by day, but wasn't kind of getting out of control. So yeah, it did start off good. However, from that point on, I think the government kind of started their failings then, and the response did kind of get out of hand. So if we do go back to the very beginning, when these cases were around, Boris Johnson did unfortunately miss 5 Cobra meetings at the very start. They were meant to be going ahead, and he decided that he had clearly more important things to do. So this is when Britain could have nipped it in the bud, you can almost say, kind of the way New Zealand did or Germany did, but he decided there were things more important and decided to go and attend them and kind of just not go to the coronavirus meetings, or the Cobra meetings, sorry. So another failing I think Boris Johnson done was that, I think it was the 3rd of March, he had an interview, and he boasted on that interview that the British public would be glad to know that he's gone around and shaking people's hands. I don't know why he suggested that, but he suggested that it was a great idea. He's going around shaking people's hands, he's visited a coronavirus hospital, and he is welcoming people, meeting them, shaking their hands. That to me is crazy. So just try to understand that for a second. The virus has been around now for a while. Countries currently in lockdowns. Deaths around the world are skyrocketing. China and Italy were getting to quite scary levels at that time, and yet British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was boasting he shook hands with potential carriers. That's kind of almost on par with what Trump's currently doing, where him and his aides are refusing to wear masks for whatever reason. His vice president visited a hospital, I think yesterday or the day before. He was the only one in the room without a mask, which I don't understand. Maybe one of you lot can explain in the comments, but that's for a future video potentially. So in the very same interview, Johnson seems to then suggest that the British public have herd immunity as a strategy. And that's kind of, he also suggested that we need to take it on the chin. So that was kind of what his idea was. We get herd immunity, take it on the chin, and we'll beat the virus. Which herd immunity potentially could work, but in this case it really wouldn't. So if I just explain why I believe it won't. So herd immunity is when 60% of the population, according to government statistics, would gain immunity from the virus, and they would therefore wipe out the virus by becoming immune. However, at the time it was kind of potentially a dangerous thing because we didn't actually know if anybody could become immune. So he's kind of suggested immunity even though there's no proof that immunity is a thing. So it will potentially work. The only problem with that, however, is 6% of the UK population is roughly 40 million people. So Boris Johnson is potentially suggesting that roughly 40 million British people contract a virus that has been extremely fatal in China and Italy. So that's 40 million people. Even with a death rate of like 1%, that is still an extreme number of deaths in the UK, and that would not only overrun the NHS, which is the main problem with an immune strategy, but it would cause millions of unnecessary deaths as well as overrun our NHS, and that would just be completely problematic. So one country that's had a great response to this is New Zealand, and their Prime Minister has said herd immunity was never even considered ever. She would refuse to put her citizens in a position where potentially she's allowing citizens to die, and that just never happened. So if we just correlate that now to New Zealand's death toll as of today, the 6th of May, they currently have only 21 deaths in the whole country. So a country that from the very get-go put their foot down and said, no, we're not letting that happen, only 21 deaths. Our country, we suggested it from the very beginning, did not nip it in the bud like New Zealand did. Okay, completely different population sizes. However, the point still stands. We currently have 30,000 deaths. That is a drastic difference. So if we now go on to another subject in terms of testing. So testing is another big area for me where the country could have improved massively. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, stated, I think it was mid-April, beginning of April, that by the end of the month, the government will be testing 100,000 people per day for coronavirus. That there is a great target. If he met it or even got close, it would have been a great thing. However, the day before the pandemic, the government decided they weren't ever going to get close to it. We kind of knew that a few days before even the figure got announced. But they kind of suggested, well, what they did was they sent out 40,000 tests. They sent them out. They didn't test people. They just sent them out. So 20,000 of them were to satellite centres and 20,000 were in the post to people. That therefore brought the total tests, according to the government, well over 100,000. However, there's no way to know if the 40,000 tests would have been taken or if they even got to people at the time because they were sent in posts. So you can't really suggest that 100,000 tests were completed when 40,000 were currently still in the post and there was no way to know if they actually get completed or not. So however, yeah, that's what happened. The Health Secretary, however, on the very last day, happily boasted that the government did meet their target. We know this is a lie now. He literally explained it being a lie, but he still boasted that the government met their target of 100,000 tests a day, and that's just not the case. Even today, the government have announced only 69,000 tests were completed, 69,000 tests completed 6 days afterwards, when we were meant to have over 100,000 tests a day. To me, something's obviously gone quite wrong there. And rather than boasting about it, why not just try and meet a higher number of tests? I think the actual number was like 70,000 tests on that day, which was good. But don't lie about it. Just say what you're doing to try and get better. Like, what I would say, therefore, is rather than all-out attempt to meet a one-day figure, wouldn't it just be better to kind of develop better infrastructure to keep a higher level of actual testing, rather than the plan they actually kept, which was just trying to prove a point of getting 100,000 tests a day, all out, just to do that? What is the point if after a few days it's fallen by 30,000 already? That to me just makes no sense. So at the beginning of the pandemic, the government continually referred to the international comparisons. So if you go back to all the meetings of that, the government continually said we're doing good compared to Italy. If you look at Italy, they've got this many deaths. You look at Spain, they've got this many deaths. We're doing good, we're here. However, now, every single time a journalist brings up we're this death figure, Italy's this death figure, Spain's this death figure, the British government seem to think the comparisons just can't happen. They're not good. You can't seem to compare countries like for like because you have different means and different tests and different this and different that. If that was the case, then why was it at the very beginning we were comparing everything? And one thing I don't get is, why do journalists never keep on digging? Why do they not ask the question of how comes it was fine to compare at the beginning if now it's no longer fine? But we don't. We just seem to let it go, and so be it. So yeah, thanks for watching. It was just a quick video, just a quick update on kind of Britain's response. Yeah, so thank you for watching. If you did like the video, please like, subscribe, and leave any comments of suggestions you would like for the future. Thank you. Have a good day.